Hey everybody, it's Andrew Thomas coming at you with your daily quick bit. Today I wanted to talk about the morals and ethics of wholesaling. Now, this is something that is an incredibly gray area as far as real estate agents are concerned, and also outside individuals. There are many lines that can be crossed that would immediately make this a bad thing, but there are also certain paths that can be walked that I believe maintain the integrity of real estate and the nature of the business. So, the first thing that you have to ask is, what is wholesaling? Wholesaling is the prospect of an individual, whether licensed or not, putting a home or a property of some sort under contract, and they utilize a clause within that contract called assignment of purchase agreement. Now, this is something that the seller sign knowingly or unknowingly, that allows the buyer to then take that contract and assign it to a different buyer. And oftentimes, this is done for an assignment fee or more money. And so the conundrums begin with the principle of, do they even know what assignment of purchase agreement means? Is this something that you're sliding some term into the contract and then later lording it over someone's head as a technicality? And I personally feel that that would be immoral and unethical. And so, personally, if I'm involved in a wholesale deal, the seller knows what that means. Now, are there conversations or discussions about how much more their property could or could not be worth? Not necessarily expressly. And for me, this comes down to the fiduciary duties, as well as intent. So, a lot of wholesalers operate under the pretense that they will never intend on actually buying a property. They are simply saying that they are, so as to get the property under contract so that they can then go wholesale it. So, for myself personally, I don't do wholesale deals with the intent of doing a wholesale deal. It's more like, hey, this is a really good deal property. I'm really excited for the opportunity. And as a contingency, I'm going to put out a fishing line. And if someone so happens to show up and is willing to pay this higher price, then I, as a buyer who intends to acquire this property, have set aside an option so as to quickly hand off this property to an additional or different buyer, for a quick payout. Now, there's a few ways that you can go about this process, and I'm going to try to not get too sidetracked and rabbit trailed because there's a lot of different things I could say on this subject. But oftentimes, the sellers will know that, hey, I have this clause within the contract. It's called assignment of purchase agreement. This is a benefit for me, but it's also an additional protection for you. In a normal transaction, there are many things that could come up and could prevent a buyer from legitimately acquiring a property, whether it's a financing falls through or an inspection issue or who knows what. And so by having an assignment of purchase agreement clause by the buyer, it provides that the buyer could also potentially bring in additional individuals that will be able to follow through with the previously agreed contract, and save the seller's time and headache for their property being occupied during that period of time and not able to be on the open market, or in this case, the private market, whatever it may be. Can you wholesale open market property? Yes. Uh, it's unlikely, I would think, that a real estate agent would want to have their seller sign a contract with assignment of purchase agreement just because they would want a clean through contract, but I'm sure it can and has happened. And again, to avoid getting too sidetracked here, uh, other ethical and moral situations that I've heard of are, hey, as a real estate agent, it is your fiduciary duty to a client to get them the best deal. And in this case, if I am going to a property with the intent of purchasing it myself from a seller, I'm not representing the seller. Um, And a way I like to frame that to kind of make it make sense is if I was representing a buyer and I showed up to a seller and the seller just was giving the property away for pennies, some people might say, hey, I'm gypping that seller by getting my buyer in there and stealing it at a great price. And you would say, well, no, of course not. Your fiduciary duties are to the buyer agent. And in this case, you got them the diamond in the rough. And so you did a great job, even though you could have gone to the seller and said, hey, just understand, you can sell this for twice what you're selling it to us for, but we're going to still take it at this price. And if you were to do something like that, it's very likely you wouldn't end up buying that property, or at least not at the price that was being presented to you. And so it brings up the issue of, is it your moral and ethical duty to inform every individual on the market as to the potential, and I think that's a very important term as well, the potential maximum value of a property? Now, you can get in there and cold hard tax practically get a realistic number that most people would likely buy a property for. But if you've been in the real estate world long enough, you'll start to realize, hey, there are people who will overpay for properties and they don't care. There are some people who do it. It doesn't always make sense, but some people have their reasons. And in the same case, there are some people who refuse to pay market value, and I will only buy a property unless it's a deal. And so you have both of those things in mind. And so it becomes ambiguous or difficult in my mind for example, if you were to look at a wholesaler and say, oh, you should have informed them as to the price they could have gotten. Well, it's hard to say what that price is. You never know. You might have some California investor come in and, I would have paid $1 million for that. It's like, but it's a $200,000 house. Not that things are that extreme, but to say, oh, you need to hold out for the potential of the lottery coming through, and it's unethical for me to buy the property at a deal, I think is a bit of a stretch. And I fear I'm talking in circles just a little bit here, but one of the things that I have done as a real estate agent so as to help bolster my moral ethical position if I do find myself in a position that a wholesale deal might be an option is many of the deals I purchase, I do with a partner who is an unlicensed agent. And he and I are going in to acquire the property, and I consider this partner as a client that I have a fiduciary duty to. And in fact, when we sign contracts, that is how the contract is formulated. And naturally, there has to be disclosures. Hey, I am a licensed real estate broker in the state of Nebraska, and I am also an interested prospect in buying this property, and am representing this buyer who is my partner. And when it comes down to how that's supposed to be presented, I err on the side of caution, and it comes with maximum communication. This is who I am. This is who he is. This is our connection. We're buying your property. And if things go wrong, we would like this clause, assignment of purchase agreement, to be involved in the contract. We intend to buy your property, and it is our genuine intent to buy said property. But if things go wrong, or if the lottery guy comes on through, we have a line out in the water as an option for us to wholesale that property in a way that I feel is morally ethical and responsible. Now, in addition to that, I like to, and this is not very common, and it, well, realistically comes down to what kind of assignment of purchase agreement fee you're charging. But if, for example, I had a property under contract for $100,000, and a guy came in and was going to wholesale it from me for $110,000 or $150,000, $50,000 spread. Wow, that's amazing. I might actually go back to the sellers who we've already come up with agreement. They have negotiated and are content and happy with $100,000. And I might say, hey, guys, I found another buyer who's going to take this over for me. I really appreciate your time. I would like to be paying you guys $110,000. And so not only am I going back to the sellers and actually increasing what they're getting above what they already agreed to kind of help that be a smooth transition, I'm also now making some money for myself and still providing a buyer, oftentimes an investor, with what they believe to be a deal. And in this scenario, especially with maximum disclosure and communication, I feel that you can perform a wholesale deal in an ethical and moral manner. So that's just my little bit. I had a couple folks reach out to me about that scenario. And so I'm sure there are certainly some things I may be overlooking, and I would love to hear about them so I can learn and make sure that my business practice is as transparent and honest and genuine as I possibly can be with clients, and competition. But that's kind of how I would look at it, and I'm interested to hear what you guys think. Thanks so much, and I'll be with you tomorrow. Bye.